DJ.
What's up? Thank you, David. That was so kind. Ladies and lady boys, I'm so sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, I just got back from Thailand. How's it going? My name is Divyak Shea, or Divi for short, and I just want to say it's such an honor to be speaking on the stage. A huge thanks to Johannes and the Nomad Cruise team for this opportunity. And it's also a huge opportunity for me to be able to represent India. As you may see, India is not well represented on the digital nomad map or even with the number of nomads in this room. And so my community, my family, and I are here to help change that. But today, in this talk, I'm going to be telling you an inspiring story about how we resurrected our ancestral land into Jungli, India's first nomad village, through the power of building in public. And you will get some really actionable takeaways about how you can also build with your customers in public and the power that happens when you do it right. So first I want to see a show of hands. Who over here is building something? Raise your hand if you're building a product, service, piece of art, community. Nice, lots of builders in the room. Now wait, keep those hands up if you're building it in public. What do I mean by building in public? Are you asking your customers for input before you launch? Are you doing surveys? And I don't mean your mom or your best friend. I mean customers, maybe people you even don't know. Nice. I can see a few hands falling down, and that's the gap that I'm here to help close today. I want to talk to you about the power of letting customers shape decisions before they're final. Not just applauding them after, but actually making them a part of the journey and building your product, service, or community or cruise with them. So today I'm going to go through a little bit about my story, why I believe you should be building in public, how you can build in public, and then the power of building in public, which is what happened to my family. We ended up with a whole nomad village through this. And then, of course, a bit of time for questions. So this is Jungli, the nomad village. It's my family's ancestral land. I was born and raised in that bungalow up the top with no label on the map. It's called Navan. And that's where I lived with my mom and my dad and my brother for the first 7 years of my life. And the reason we have this land is because my great-grandfather started this massive factory on the south end that we've circled, right? So in 1955, he started it. It did really well. And in the 70s, we had all of these villas and bungalows that we've now turned into co-livings that we were able to build. But in 2001, unfortunately, it all came to a screeching halt because the factory had to be closed due to reasons outside of our control. So for 24 years, it's actually been really tough for my family and I to have the industrial expense without the industrial income, right? At the end of the talk, I'm going to talk to you about how we're now resurrecting this with our community. But this is what it looked like. I grew up in the jungle. Some of my friends call me Mowgli. And that's my family over there. And actually, it's really special for me that my family is actually on board this cruise with me today. So Dad, Mom, and Nayash, could you guys stand up? And could everyone give them a round of applause? Absolute bunch of legends, very nomadic family. And if you talk to them, they will adopt you and they will feed you chocolate, so watch out. After I grew up here, I spent 10 years in Australia, and 5 years of that, I was one of the first employees of Uber Australia, and I grew into the community manager for the 80,000 drivers of Australia and New Zealand. That's where I learned a lot of the chops that I'm going to be sharing with you today. Then I had my hippie era. We've all had our hippie era. Sold everything I owned, jumped into a camper van in Australia, and followed my love for music and started recording sounds from beautiful places and making music from beautiful places, turning places into beats like the iconic Ban Bao sound in Vietnam and the hello, welcome of Thailand. But let's zoom out. Why do I believe you should build in public? 3 main reasons. Number 1, it builds product market fit. Rather than you experimenting and trialing different things and tech companies doing a lot of A/B testing, sometimes the power of asking is way better than that because your audience or your community knows what they want. That will help you reach your revenue goals quicker. The second is it builds ownership. By asking your customers for their input and getting them involved in the journey, they actually turn into higher quality customers, giving you more lifetime value per customer. And the third one is it creates evangelists. If you're not familiar with this word, an evangelist is someone that speaks about your brand and converts people for you. I don't mean affiliates, I mean evangelists. In the world of affiliates and promo codes, there's a lot of transactional relationships that happen. People want you to sign up to something because they get a kickback. That's transactional. But an evangelist is someone that's built it with you, that feels it in their bones, that has not a transactional, but an emotional relationship with your brand and really wants you to win because they feel like that's when they win as well. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples on how you can build in public. This is how we did it at Uber. So if you're running a big company, big corporate, this is a good strategy for you. The problem we faced at Uber is that drivers didn't really trust decisions from management because management would just inform them, here's a new feature, here's a new policy. There was no consultation. Management would also tell them this information in a massive email in English, and a lot of the drivers were South Asian origin. They really weren't reading those long emails. So instead, we flipped the script on its head and we started asking the drivers rather than telling the drivers about the new policies or the new features. Through focus groups and surveys, we got their input and we asked. Then, of course, we took photos of those focus groups and voice recordings from those focus groups and analyzed the survey. And this is the most important part. We then amplified the power of that. First, through a podcast, because we knew that the drivers weren't reading English, but they could listen to and understand English a lot easier. So this is where if you're building a community, if you're building in public, one big takeaway is think about your medium of communication. Maybe Instagram isn't the best. Maybe LinkedIn isn't the best. What does your audience or community use? Meet them halfway, right? And of course, in the podcast, we use those voice recordings from focus groups. And in the newsletter, we use the photos of the focus groups. And drivers started to see that these decisions are no longer being made in a silo in an ivory tower. The management's actually coming down and chatting to the drivers. The takeaway here is that people just want to feel heard. So think about what you're building. Think about how you can involve your community, audience, customers, and how you can make them feel heard with their opinions. The second example I have for you is when I left everything to go ahead and make music from beautiful places. Here's the reality, guys, especially if you make art, no one cares about your art, right? I know it's a little tough pill to swallow, and if you're sitting on some art and you think, the day I put it out, everyone will care because it's the best. Well, surprise, surprise, nobody cares about your art. There is an art to making people care about your art, right? And I want to share with you a strategy and a framework that I used so that you can think about how you can apply it to your personal brands or whatever you're building. So I was making music. The obvious audience there is listeners, music lovers. But rather than just giving them music, I thought, how can I involve them? So for listeners, I made playlists and I asked them to suggest music for the playlist. Super simple. Then I asked them where I should go. I asked them what sounds to record. That's how I got the Bun Bao sounds and the Chiang Mai sounds that's in the latest reels. I also then started turning those places into beats and collaborating with everyday people I met on the road, and therefore it became a collaborative activity. Through doing this, I saw that there was a lot of people that were other fellow music producers like me that were interested. So I started teaching them, creating WhatsApp groups with them. So it's not about seeing other people that are doing the same thing as competition, but more as collaboration. From this, I built 5,000 Instagram followers. It's not huge. This is not about a numbers game. It's about an engagement game, right? From these 5,000 followers, I asked them if they'd like to sign up to my email newsletter because that's where I was going to give them, creations before they release and a little bit of real talk. And 10% converted, and I built a nice email an email newsletter of 500 subscriptions. Remember, on social media, you're renting an audience, right? The day you get hacked or the day Instagram changes its algo, you don't have much control. But on email, on WhatsApp, you're owning your audience. From the newsletter, I started giving a lot of value and then asking my audience if they'd like to crowdfund me by buying me a beer. There's a website called Buy Me a Coffee. Put your hands up if you've heard of it. Nice. You can change the currency to beer, which I thought for me traveling Australia was pretty on brand. And so people started buying me beers, and I didn't expect that 150 people are going to buy me a beer. But none of that would have started without the bottom of the pyramid and starting with 5,000 followers on Instagram and nurturing that engagement upwards through this pyramid of engagement. The takeaway here is that you need to involve your audience to create community. And community is what I started to have, not an audience. And you can see that with the engagement rate. Normally, for an account my size, the engagement rate should be 5% on average. But for me, it was 15% because I wasn't talking to them. We were having a real conversation. Which brings me to my next question. What do you think is the difference between an audience and a community? Because you need this in order to build in public. Anyone want to have a go? Go for it.
An audience is because they like to follow you. A community is because they feel part of it.
Oh, that's beautiful. An audience is because they like to follow you. A community is because they feel like they're part of your journey. That's really nice. Anyone else?
You speak to an audience, but the community speak together.
Boom, you nailed it. This is my favorite quote. An audience is where you have a monologue, and a community is where you have a true dialogue. So think about how you can start to involve your audience in a true dialogue. And now I'm going to give you an example of how we did it. In September 2023, my life changed. I was invited to Bitung Digital Nomad Village, Indonesia, to record their sounds and turn them into beats. Pretty wild. And over here, it's like the world showed me a screenplay. I saw a village that looked just like that hometown where I grew up in. I met people that were meeting foreigners for the first time. I met foreigners that loved learning about the local food and the local language. And I started to notice and realize that now with this community that I've got and this ancestral land that we've got that's been sitting there racking up expenses, we already have the land. We already have the team. All we needed now was Wi-Fi and community in order to launch India's first nomad village. So I got to work, but I didn't want to build it alone. So here's how I did it. On my Instagram, I just told people I'm going to ghost Instagram, and I did for a year, because for 3 years I'd been building up content over there. I'd built up a good following and organic engagement. So I just said to them, I'm pausing Audio Nomad Life to launch a nomad village in the jungle. If you're in my inner circle, you know. But if not, DM me your email ID and maybe I'll add you in. To the newsletter, the people that were loyal to me, to Johannes' point, of the people that have been backing you initially, that's who you got to be loyal to. I told them the full thing. I showed them photos of our ancestral land, I shared the vision, and I said, if you want to build it with me, join this WhatsApp community. I woke up the next morning with 60 people in a WhatsApp community saying, let's build. And I was like, holy cow. Look at the numbers here. 60 people on Instagram doesn't sound like a lot, but suddenly 60 engaged people rowing in the same direction on WhatsApp is like a bit of an army, right? So here are some strategies you can use that I've learned about building in public, especially when it starts to get to this level. So I created a WhatsApp group so that I could give updates to this closed community and ask them for input as I build a village. Everything from the brand name to what kind of coffee they want. But when someone new joins a WhatsApp group, I'm sure you've come across this problem. They can't actually see the previous chats. So I solved this problem by putting up all of the videos that I had shared, like the piece-to-camera videos, on a secret unlisted YouTube channel, and then welcoming every new joiner with a message that linked them to that YouTube channel. This way, they could get context, and so they could catch up on the story so far and give better input on the upcoming questions and polls and surveys I had coming. Then we started to ask for input even for the tough stuff. When I worked at Uber, they would fly the community engagement flag, but the day that we started to talk about more sensitive topics like pricing, they'd be like, oh, we can't talk about that with the drivers. So I felt so good to not have a policy, legal, and comms team breathing down my neck at this point that I could really run community the way I want. So Dad and I were sitting at a table thinking, how do we price it? We don't know. Let's ask the community. So we made a survey and we showed the community the photos of the co-livings, the food, the facilities. We asked them how long would they like to stay, right? And how much would you be willing to pay for this experience? And through that, we at least got some kind of bell curve and some kind of ballpark, because 70 people filled in that survey in our early days. And now Jungli costs $475 to $800 full board with meals and stay and taxes, because we had to make a price point that was friendly for our Indian audience as well as our international audience. Then things started to get loco. People started showing up. I wasn't even ready yet. I just said that, hey, the next thing we need to launch the village is Wi-Fi. I don't know how to set up Wi-Fi in the middle of the jungle. Turns out there was someone in the community referred by my mom, thanks mom, who owned a broadband company, and he was like, I'll take the train with you and I'll set it up with you. He spent a few days with us, multiple Zoom calls. We have 200 plus Mbps Wi-Fi. I asked him for the invoice and he said, don't worry about it. I love that you're resurrecting your ancestral land into something beautiful and I just want to help. And I was like, wow, that's insane. Thank you so much. Of course, did we give him a stay with his family later when we were live? 100%. Emily was in Goa, my friend from van life days, and she said, Divi, I'm coming to the village. I said, Emily, you don't understand. My Wi-Fi is not set up yet. I have no SOPs. The rooms don't have names, all these things that I thought were important, but really are not in the big scheme of things. And she said, it doesn't matter. I love what you're building. I want to be a part of it. I want to help, and I want to pay full price. And I was like, what's going on? And so she showed up, and she built our library. Malcolm came from New York and he said, mate, you have some legends coming down. I'm into audio. I love editing. I'm going to edit your podcast. So now we have the Jungli podcast with 6 episodes live. Tennille flew in from Amsterdam and she said, I love what you're doing. I want to redesign your entire bungalow into something beautiful and like Soho House inspired. And I'm not the best designer. And so I was like, go for it. And again, she leaned in. The reason I'm showing you these examples is what I'm trying to tell you is as a founder, sometimes you feel like you need to have every little detail ironed out. But the takeaway here is that if you leave a little bit of space in the design, your community will build it with you. And you'll end up with something that has more of a product market fit than if you were to build with founder's bias. Deepak came in and took photos of our space. Aarti came in and built our brand. That beautiful map that you saw, it was all this amazing talent from Kerala. Mital came in and said, you're going to have a lot of people into yoga, so let me make you an aerial yoga center and get ahead of the curve. And now it's a very popular part of the jungle. Artists came and they said, look, these digital nomads, they're doing well off, that's great. We're artists, we're broke. But we bring a nice vibe to the place. And as an artist, I know that. And so they found an old factory guest house that was just lying there in the land. And they said, we're going to take it upon ourselves to convert it. They painted it with lime wash, with natural paint. They had art all over it. And they made that old industrial factory guest house now Serene the Art House, our new affordable co-living, dedicated by artists for artists. Similarly, pet owners came and they said, well, we can't bring our pets to your, big bungalow because of the food safety risk. So make us some villas. Let us help consult you with what we need as pet owners that we don't find in Airbnbs and other places that we travel. And now we have pet-friendly villas. Athletes came in and they said, this badminton thing is not going to cut it. If you're a nomad village, you need pickleball. And I was like, 100%, I love pickleball, let's go. So they helped us convert our badminton court into a pickleball court. Here is where it gets even crazier. As you know, India is a place where a lot of women, especially solo, female travelers, feel a little bit nervous to travel to because of all the stories, right? And that's something that's very important to my family and I, wanting to make India safer and more accessible for women. But my dad and I are male, right? And my team, because of the factory days and cultural norms in the village, are mostly male. So who are we to make these decisions? So we made a WhatsApp group called the Women of Jungli, and in this subgroup, we started asking women, how can we mitigate risk? And through that, we found that if we have a good airport pickup with the driver's photo and the person holding the Jungli signboard right there at check-in, that's a big one already. And then if we have a store with sanitary pads so that women don't have to leave to go to the market to buy sanitary pads, little things like that go a long way. And I'm really, really proud to say that in collaboration with the Women of Jungli, in a country that's not known for solo female travelers to travel, more than 1 in 3 room nights are booked by solo female travelers. And that's how we measure the health of our community and something we want to keep going. Now, how do we keep going? Like you might think Jungli's launched, it's all good. And same for you. You might think that you just need the feedback to get to your MVP. But really, it's about continuous feedback loops. So here's how we ask for feedback at Jungli, and you can take it away and think about how you can implement it in whatever you're building, right? So the first one is a feedback board. I learned this from Airbnb. When I was at Uber, I was spying on Airbnb. So what they do for their hosts is they have a tech platform where every host can suggest an idea, and then other hosts can upvote that idea. The best votes go to the top, and then they deliver on those. So we have the same thing, but analog, right? And I know right now that espresso machine and blackout curtains is what my community is calling out for, and that's what we're going to prioritize. Similarly, we have community meetings so that every Monday we meet and we ask people in real time, hey, what's going well, what could be better, and what events do you want to do this week? So we co-create the experience at the village. And in that conversation, you get different ideas than you would in a written medium. And of course, when people leave, we get their feedback, run it through AI, and see what are the top pain points that people are asking for. But here is what I think a lot of people miss and what I'm a big fan of. It's called closing the loop. It's not just about listening. It's about solving problems and then letting everybody know you've solved them, right? So on the feedback board, next to the we ask, we have another board called, next to the you ask, we have another board called we delivered, where we take whatever we've delivered from the community, put it on the we delivered board, take a photo, share it around to the community and say, hey, thanks to y'all, we made this happen. When Praveen came to Jungli and he said that, mate, your co-working space really needs some office chairs, we expedited it, we made it happen, and then we shout out Praveen on the community group. And what's really special about that is Praveen is right here today, also on the Nomad crew. So thanks, legend, for getting Jungli office chairs. So why do all this, right? We have a massive factory, we have massive land, we have massive expenses. All of this is just more effort. You might be thinking the same. You have all of these things on your to-do list. Why should you invest time in building in public? My friends, let me tell you, building in public delivers real business results. It's by going through this method alone that we've managed to just reach 500 Junglis 2 days ago with Dinara from Spain rocking up. She was Jungli number 500 from more than 16 countries, and we've done that in less than 2 years with zero marketing budget, just a WhatsApp group, a newsletter, referrals, and only recently a touch of social media, which is still very much focused on user-generated content. Building in public creates interest that compounds over time. That's our revenue on the right. The revenue in green is new customers, new guests. The revenue in yellow is guests that have returned or brought friends along with them, right? Or community-generated revenue. We have a crazy good New Year's party. So when we had that in December, people had a good time, like Praveen, and then they knew they had to come back and bring their friends, and so they did, and that's why December and Jan was looking good. So this will give you high retention. There's only 2 ways to make money in business: acquire new customers, which is expensive, or retain them. Building in public is a great way to retain existing customers, and customers are now coming back to Jungli feeling like they're returning home. Also, remember when I was making music and I said there were other music makers and you can treat them as collaboration or competition? Similarly, when I started the WhatsApp group, there are other co-livings in India that got attracted to our idea and our vision and said, hey, Dev, we also have high-speed Wi-Fi. We also have good community vibes, and we also believe in good safety for women. So I thought, okay, why don't I stay at all of these cool co-livings in India, stitch them together, and create the Jungli Trail. So now with Odd Table in North Goa and 360 Agonda in South Goa, we're just a little bit inland of Goa and a secret location until you apply, we are building India's first digital nomad trail, and that's all happening due to the authenticity and transparency from that WhatsApp group. This is just a nice, heartfelt feeling for my family and I that I want to share with you. Thanks to the community support, thanks to support from platforms like this at Nomad Cruise, we've been able to start to view our land instead of a burden as a blessing as it starts to come back to life. That was our revenue in 2024. That was our revenue in 2025. And my team, community, and I are absolutely deluded enough to believe that we're going to double that and more to help get to break even and keep the legacy going, which my great-grandfather started in 1955, just through a modern digital nomad village lens. So the takeaway for you, if you're building something, and if you're not yet building it in public, or if you're building it in public and you want to lean in even more, tap into human psychology. Know that humans, we love to feel heard. How can you ask people for their opinions? It can even start with an Instagram close friends list. That's how I got started. Before you move to a WhatsApp group or an email newsletter, start small, right? Make them feel heard, take their opinions. Secondly, how can you co-create? No problem is too big, right? How can you co-create on solving problems together? And thirdly, how can you make them feel like they're on a winning team? By sharing all our revenue figures publicly, of course without axes for sensitivity, people actually know that the graph is going up into the right, and they help make that happen. There's no greater feeling. In fact, think about the brands that you engage with. Think about where we are right now. Why are we all on Nomad Cruise? Why are we also pumped to be on Nomad Cruise? Because they have an awesome WhatsApp chat where we can all express ourselves. They have a subgroup where we can introduce ourselves. They have an ability for speakers like me to apply to speak, for lightning speakers to speak, and anyone to host a side event, right? So we are all actually co-creating Nomad Cruise together. And I just want to take a second and give a round of applause to Johannes, Dory, Eva, David, the entire team for building in public so well. Woohoo! Guys, as I wrap it up, if you would like these slides, and if you would like more resources, like an amazing masterclass on how to build your personal brand, to start to build in public, as well as an invite to join our community, you can just scan that QR code and you'll get an email newsletter sign-up box, type in your first name and email ID, and by tonight, I'll send you a newsletter with all the resources you need to get started, to build in public, as well as follow Jungli's journey. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for coming.